Okay, everybody, welcome to the next session in the Fall BAYT Midrash series. My name is Chaim Metzger, member of BAYT Midrash Zichron Dov, as well as rabbinic assistant at the BAYT. And today we're going to be exploring a little bit about sports and exercise and how that relates to doing that on Shabbos. So just to do a quick summary from last time, for those who missed it. So we went through some the messy history of Jews in sports, going from the times of the Hasmoneans through the times of Herod, all the way to modern day, where we discussed some of the issues being Jews abandoning Judaism at various points in order to pursue different sports, and the decrees that were given therein. Again, there's specific decrees against playing of sports, as opposed to that of, again, there's general positive mitzvah, let's say of fulfilling Torah, and that not doing so is a problem with bittul Talmud Torah. But there is a specific prohibition of sports and the like, because it seemed to be a large degree of Hellenization and leading to far worse things as well. So that's what we discussed last time. And now, again, some of those issues will come up again as we try to figure out if you can do sport and exercise on Shabbat. So for that, I'm going to share screen. So again, I pasted the Makoro in the chat, but if you haven't had it downloaded or on your phone, I will be screen sharing as well. Okay, so here we go. Okay, please let me know if you have an issue hearing me or would like to, please let me know. And again, if you think I can't hear you and you want to unmute yourself, you can also wave and I'll see your hand as well. Okay, so the first source that we're going to begin with today about sports and exercise on Shabbos is, we're going to start with one of the sources we quoted last week, that of the Jerusalem Talmud and Masechet Ta'anit. We're talking about the destruction of the city called Tor Shimon. Right, so we discussed the reasons why it was destroyed, and there's two different versions of it. One version has that it was destroyed. Why was Tor Shimon destroyed? Some say because of licentiousness, or because of a particular harlot, or because they play ball. And then, depending on the gears you have, it's either on Shabbos or because they play ball, period. So it's because they play ball, period. That means that really this discussion would be going back to last week. But since one of the versions says on Shabbos, also incidentally is the one that a lot of people pass like halacha, so that's the one we're going to be focusing on a bit more this time. Okay, so we have this interesting story where we say that it's forbidden because of licentiousness or because of sports. So they might be the same thing, they might not be. Okay, and then we have the commentary of the Korban Eda. Again, this stuff's from last week, which is why I'm going to go through it a little bit quicker. When we get to the new stuff, we'll slow down, not to worry. Right, so again, there's two reasons. So one reason is why the problem playing ball on Shabbos itself is a problem. Alternatively, again, he's giving the reason from last time, that they would waste their time away, right, because of Mevat and Talmud Torah, waste their ways away with this instead of learning Torah. Okay, so the question is something unique about the problem on Shabbos. We're going to have to get to what's wrong with playing sports on Shabbos, right? So we still haven't seen any reasons yet. We just know that it's bad. So the question is, why is it bad? Right, and then even we have, if you see here, this is an Echaraba, right? So again, this is a Midrash. We're going to quote it last time as well. And again, we say because they play ball on Shabbos. But we don't really have a reason as to why it's forbidden yet. We still don't have a good reason, right? But the problem playing ball on Shabbos because the city was destroyed. We don't have any reason why. So a little unclear. And to make things more confusing, right, I'm sure people have seen this verse plastered around many playgrounds throughout the world, specifically in Yerushalayim. And the broad places of the city will be filled with children, boys and girls, playing in the broad places thereof, right? So girls and boys playing in the streets is considered to be a good thing. So last I checked, most times that I've seen children playing, a lot of the time it involves some sort of ball. Right? Oh, you could say, oh, it's a frisbee. Frisbees aren't a ball. There's something else, but it's the same thing, right? So the question is, so how do we deal with this tension? So before we go on to any more sources, let's see what people have. Let's see, why would it be a problem to play ball on Shabbos? What do we have? What are the reasons we can think of? Feel free to chime in.
Erev.
One issue is
the Erev.
Erev. Good point, right? right? Maybe because of the Erev, right? If you're playing ball and there's no Erev, then every time you throw the ball, you're violating Isser Daraisa, and that can add up. Good. So
It distracts you from. It's a distraction from being Shabbostic.
Right, it's a distraction from what you're supposed to do on Shabbos, right? Shabbos isn't meant for playing games, right? Shabbos is meant for a deep, meaningful spiritual experience. It is not meant to spend the whole day away playing catch. Good.
So
Okay,
does that?
Yeah. Yes.
So does that mean though that you're a young child, that's okay, but when you get to be an older child, when you can have deep, meaningful spiritual experiences, it's something different?
Correct. We will get to that as well. Right. The difference between the age and stage of life and whether that's appropriate or not. So all these things we will get to. So far we have the potential issues involved. The tech again. There's nothing inherently wrong with this. So we have as follows. There's nothing inherently wrong with sports. It's just that by doing so, you can inadvertently violate a whole slew of different things that are forbidden. Right. Especially if there's no Erev, it's very easy to. Right. So again, so there's also issues mentioned the Gemara Erevin, not gonna get to it inside of an issue of playing this game with nuts, which is basically like modern day marbles, where we're afraid you're gonna start smoothing on the ground to play the game better, and things like that. Right? There's a lot of like ancillary issues that you could violate. Why can't you play poker? Because when it comes to gamble, and that's a business transaction you can't do on Shabbos. Why can't I play Monopoly? Because you're buying things, right? I'm sure everybody remembers that argument. And like, somebody had that argument, and then it was like, okay, you can go sit over there. We're gonna play Monopoly anyways, so we'll see you later. So all right, so then like, yeah. So like the question is like, are these ancillary technical? Maybe you'll violate it. Are those really a problem or not? And for more on the gambling point, we'll and that. So and the transaction, we'll get to that in a later share as well. About gambling itself. But for now, we'll say so. There's some like. So there might be some ancillary issues that have nothing to do with this balls. Just like you might violate Shabbos by doing this activity, and therefore we're going to say don't play this game. We also have that that it would be against the spirit of Shabbos, and we say that within the concept of what's considered to be appropriate Shabbos activity, we say we can differentiate between the ages. The old and the young will have different rules. So now let's see what we can. Now let's see what our options are. Okay. So now so now we're jumping forward to right there is in regards to playing ball on Shabbos. So again, we get straight to Shulchan Aruch. We have two. Right. So now we skipped a lot of history and debate this way and that way. When it's Shabbos versus Yom Tov, Mutter, Aser. So so we skipped a lot of that. But now we're fast forwarding a couple hundred years. We're now in the 16th century. So can you play ball or not? So we've got two opinions. We have the Shulchan Aruch, who says straight, based on the Yerushalmi, that it's forbidden to play ball on Shabbos Yom Tov with the ball. Like that's it. On the other hand, we have the Ramah who says there are those that permit it, and the custom is to be lenient. So now we're a little bit more. Now we're like, wait. So there's two entirely different things. Either it's expressly forbidden, or it's allowed. So what? Right. So what do we do? Right. Does that mean that if you're Ashkenaz, you can play ball outside, no problem? If you're Sephardi, you can't. So some would say that, or some would say that maybe depends on where you are, what the minhag is in the place you are. If it's viewed as being not Shabbosdik, then it's a problem. But if everybody says that that's fine, then maybe it's fine. So we'll have to look a little bit more into this to see what's going on here. Okay. So as far as my mom had mentioned, in regards to it being permitted depending on the person. So for this, we have the Magen Avram, right? Rabbi Avram Gordimer in the commentary on the Shulchan Aruch from the 17th century. So he's commenting. This is technically later on in the Shulchan Aruch by Yom Tov specifically. Again, when you've managed to solve all of the potential Shabbos violations, right? Because now, and again, so none of the other ancillary issues are a problem. Can you play? So here's what he has to say. So, right, so are you allowed to play? So the Yom Shel Shlomo writes, it's a bad custom since this isn't happiness and enjoyable for adults, but for children, we won't protest. So what does it seem like according to Magen Avraham? So do we like the fact that people are, so should you or shouldn't you play games on Shabbos? Play ball? What do we think? Yes or no at this point? Well, here it seems like it's a little in between. It's like, well, it's not for adults, but kids can do so, but like they really shouldn't be. So on the other hand, so we're going to again apologize for the time skips, but right. So now we're fast forwarding to the 19th and early 20th century, the Aruch HaShulchan. Right. So this is Rabbi Chaim Metzger, right, one of the most famous poskim around. So he has a different thing. So he's dealing with the issue, relatively modern times, of everybody's playing ball on Shabbos. So, okay, so if you want to read the Hebrew, it's there, but I'm going to read the English just for ease of use, as well as to make sure that we have enough time to cover everything, because we're going to try getting both sports and exercise in this one, so it might be a little tight on time. So, our teacher, the Rama, wrote that it's permissible to play with a ball even in public domain, even though it is only general pleasure. Meaning, it's right. So this is saying that if you're enjoying it, you're allowed to play sports on Shabbos. There are those who object to this on the grounds that this is not religious joy or pleasure except to children, but not for adults, like the Magen Avraham that we just quoted earlier. In truth, this is not a valid objection, for since it is precious to him within his own undeveloped religious consciousness, how can we withhold this from him? Additionally, he himself, meaning according to the Maharshal, wrote that if he had set up an eruv, then it would be permissible to move and carry out anything which is considered a utensil, even if it is for no need related to the day of the holy day at all. So on the other hand, we seem to have the Aruch HaShulchan seem like coming out saying that it's allowed. So this seems to be a pretty big departure from before, right? So what is it? What's going on here? So, right, so it seems for playing ball, there's basically split down the middle. There are people who say that it's fine, assuming you don't find any issues, and others say that it's allowed. So the question is, right, and we said it comes down to, might come down to, what you consider to be appropriate Shabbos-wise, depending on the person or the individual. So it seems like if the point is that we want you to be able to enjoy Shabbos, and you get joy on Shabbos out of it, then that's fine. And the question is just, what is the right joy? And that's what we're arguing about. But on the other hand, you might be saying that there's a specific problem with playing ball on Shabbos, as we mentioned last week, that there's something inherently wrong with sports. Perhaps there's something, at least for the Shabbos purposes, perhaps during the week too, that sports might not be as upstanding and good for a good Jewish boy or girl to play. It's something else. So, right. So that again, clearly the Magen Avraham and the Aruch HaShulchan aren't convinced of that opinion, as are many others. They're simply just like, no, it's just based on enjoyment on Shabbos, or is it appropriate to play on Shabbos at all? And that's how you can wind up places where everybody plays ball on Shabbos. Again, we'll get into again how should you be wearing your shorts and t-shirt? Should you be wearing your suit and tie? Again, we'll get into that in a little bit, right? But just from the point of like playing ball itself, we seem to have both camps. Some saying it's forbidden, some saying it's permitted. So let me just say right now that I asked Rabbi Kropkin, and he is very much not a fan of of adults playing sports on Shabbos. Even for ping pong and billiards, he's not a fan yet. So, but again, there are other opinions. But again, I'm just stating Rabbi Kropkin's opinion. If somebody, so. Right, so then for little kids, again, want to go play ball, have fun, but when they get old enough, well, sorry, you have to learn how to enjoy Shabbos the right way. So, again, not necessarily gonna make every kid happy, but that's how it is. So again, an element of that largely comes down to the question, what should Shabbos look like? And if they're just going to be playing ball all day, then, well, it's not really Shabbos. It's simply a day with no school, so we're going to play ball all day. So, yeah. So that's in regards to playing sports. We'll get back to it. Don't worry. We're going to circle back because a large part of this is going to be affected by some other issues of doing things that people might consider to be fun on Shabbos. So another thing people might like to do on Shabbos, and might find enjoyable, is exercise. So for exercise, so I'm going to point everybody to a Mishnah in Shabbat. Okay, everybody sees the Mishnah here. So for this one, we're going to have to read a little bit of both the Hebrew and the English in order for this to make sense, because there's also some Greek words thrown in there. So I'm going to read Hebrew, then the English, and if any words are still not clear by the end, trust me, they should not be clear by the end. If they are, then I did something wrong. So, okay, so sachin umamashrishin b'bnei hame'ayin, right? So you're allowed to use oil and gently rub your innards. Avalo mitamlin, but you can't do mitamlin, and you can't do scraping, and you can't go. Velo migardin, in your din the kordema. Another says piluma. Can't go down to those places. The ain osin afiktozin. You can't use artificial emetics. The ain ma'atzvin adakatan. You can't set the small bone. The ain machzirin into shever. You can't set a break. Nishnifur kayado. If you dislocated your arm or shoulder, lo yitrafem betzonin avaro feitzu b'darkov yidrape yitrape. And if you hurt yourself, you can't use anything cold. Rather, you're supposed to just run it under water like you normally would if you're washing off, and then if it gets better, it gets better. Okay, I see Moshe raise his hand. Yes, Moshe.
But if it's something that's like severe, is because the way you have it translated here is setting a broken bone. Like if you don't set the broken bone right away, there could be repercussions, and and don't we say ushmartis nafshu secha from v'chai.
Excellent point, right? So you're thinking, wait, isn't that danger, like life-threatening, and therefore you should have to set it? Of course, you should set it right away. So the answer to that is that correct. If you actually had a complex break, you would definitely set it right away and do all the medical things necessary, because that's a life-threatening situation. But let's go through. When we look at all the things mentioned in this, right? So the question is, how does all of these things relate to medicine? Right, that's the question, right? When all these things we listed, right? I remember the last thing: if you need to pay, if it heals, it heals. So seemingly everything mentioned in this Mishnah relates to medicine in some way, right? Refuah. So the question is, how? As well as, what exactly would you have violated for each one? And is it simply medicine or something else? So what do we think? Do we think these are all just different types of medicine that are asur midrabanan, or do we think there's something else going on here? What do we think? What does it look like to us? Who thinks these are all just different types of medical procedures and that's that?
I think it's got to be something else.
What was that? Say a little louder.
It's got to be something else than just some medical practices, because there aren't enough medical sciences inside.
Right, it's probably something else, because it's not just. It looks like it might not just be medical. So let's focus on the ones that might not be medical. Okay, so the ones that might not be medical, there's these two. So there's really only one that doesn't sound like it's medical at all. Okay, and that's the ein yordin lekordema or piluma. The question is, what does this mean? Okay, so again, don't read the English because that's cheating. But right, so in English, you see how it's translated. So the issue is that translation is not how it was understood classically by the Rishonim or the Gemara. They talk about it being a muddy place where you go down for health reasons. So they view it being some sort of spa or something by the river, or you go to the mud bath by the Dead Sea, like one of those type of things is what I think it is. But why do I have here wrestling arena? So Rabbi Shaul Berman, right, or Professor Saul Lieberman, depending on which context you're reading his works. Right. So then he wrote a work on sports and exercise, on sport and exercise as it comes up in the Babylonian Talmud. For exact reference, if you'd like, email me and I'll happily give it to you. So he mentions that what are these words in Greek and Latin? These actually, the word kordema and piluma are two different words used to refer to a wrestling pitch. Right, place we go down to wrestle. Right, it's often muddy. Right, this would explain why the Gemara talks about the mud, but there's something describing the place, and so the issue being is that you're not allowed to wrestle on Shabbos. Similarly, a specific Isser Midrabanan about wrestling and going to the wrestling arena on Shabbos, which would then mean that all of these things that are mentioned here are all parts of the routine things that happen to a wrestler. You had standard injuries as well as standard upkeep, and the question is, we got a guy who's professional wrestler or semi-professional or thinks he's professional. And he's, enjoying, and the question is, what can he do on Shabbos and not do on Shabbos? So we say oiling up and giving himself a, light massage, right? Everybody does that anyways. We put on, put a little perfume, right? Right. So that's fine, right? A little bit of oils, right? So that's fine. But on the other hand, once you get things that are more intense, part of your regimen, such as mitamlin, which is some form of exercise, or scraping, or using artificial emetics to make, for weight control, or for setting the various injuries that end up occurring when you wrestle. So those you're not allowed to do on Shabbos, right? Those are all a problem. So this would mean that there's seemingly an Isser D'Rabbanan on wrestling. But good news, since the Rishonim and the Achronim had no idea what this meant, a Din D'Rabbanan that has been forgotten is just that. It's a cool academic thing that you might want to mention in a shir because it's fun. But halach l'maaseh, you can ignore what I just said about wrestling, because at the end of the day, that's not a problem, and you don't need to worry about it. So that's what I asked this to my Rabbi leader when I first read this, and that's what he told me. He's like, yeah, it's excellent that you read that you found a cool academic article pointing me out, but that's all it is. It's a cool academic article. It does not affect halacha at the end of the day. Okay. So now, as far as our getting back to our main thrust of the day, which is playing of sports. So we're gonna have to focus in on what it means to be mit'amel, to exercise. I noticed, Ma, you had a question?
No, I was just confused. So it's not that you can't. Is it that you can't? You're saying that you can't repair these injuries, or you're not allowed to repair the injuries because you weren't allowed to wrestle to begin with. So if you got the injuries because you were wrestling, then we're not repairing those injuries. But let's say somebody broke their leg.
It could have been either,
different.
Is the answer. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, we basically kind of ignore the words kordema, piluma, halach l'maaseh. So whatever nafkamis that may have are not relevant, is the answer. So, right. So in the end, the rest of these are basically all viewed in terms of being refuah, and they ignore the context of the fact that this was a wrestler, and like seemingly the Mishnah written to a wrestler. If you know anybody who wrestles, you could tell them that I read a Mishnah that was written just for you. But at the end of the day, for the rest of us, it's right. It's all talking about different types of refuah, right? Certain types of refuah are allowed, certain ones are not allowed. Right. So again, simply lightly using oil and a light massage is considered to be okay, but the rest of them are considered to be refuah. Or are they? So we're going to focus in on mitamel exercise because that'll relate a lot to, let's say, the playing of sports and the like, if that's allowed or not allowed. Okay. So the question is, what is don't be mitamel? Yes.
Me again?
Yeah, you asked the question.
So I'm a little bit. Me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I'm a little confused. Okay, so the wrestling, went out the window. But let's say it's Shabbos and you fell and you broke your leg. So
if it's
you slipped on the ice, you broke your leg.
Right. So
what?
It comes down to, is it dangerous? There's different. There's dangerous injury, which case you go straight to the hospital. So you go to the doctor and he fixes it. Right. On the other hand, if it's like you're somebody who's prone to dislocations, right? And then therefore, the answer is like, so you dislocated your arm, which happens all the time. again, there are people who have this condition, right? Right, an easily dislocated rotator cuff, for instance, then if you say if your arm got dislocated, the answer is it's not like it'll be fine if you wait a couple hours. And the answer is that you're just gonna have to wait till after Shabbos to get it, put back in. And you probably shouldn't have been roughhousing earlier, and just saying like, you're stuck waiting. Yes, Moshe.
You answered it.
Okay, good. So the question is now, we're going to focus in on what it means to exercise. Okay, so what is lihita mel? All right, so we're all like, oh, we know what exercising is, but depending on the definition of what exercise is, will make a very big difference as to what you're allowed or not allowed to do on Shabbos. So the Rabbi Chaim, right, writing in the early 11th century in Tunisia, so he says, what do we mean by exercising? So what would they do? They would stretch out and fold their arms in front of them and behind them, and similarly put their legs to their thighs, warm up and sweat. And it is like an act of healing and therefore prohibited. Okay? So he's describing what actions are done in exercise, and he says it's comparable to refuah, and therefore it's a problem. Similarly, we have the Rambam, again, writing about a century later, or actually a century and a half later, right? So again, it says that it's based on, the word mitamlin, again, gives the Arabic word. I apologize for not being fluent in Arabic. For more, I probably should ask Rabbi Kruk in that because he actually knows Arabic. But anyways, so again, a derivative of the word toiling. So, and therefore this is putting a lot of effort and exertion. Okay, so again, both seem to be doing a fairly good job of describing exercise in general. Okay, right. So the question, so again, seemingly for both of them, it appears to be this is something related to potentially, perhaps to medicine. So, and then in regards to, are you allowed to simply go around and go for nice long walks? So the answer is perhaps you can. So we have the Tosefta in Shabbos, paralleling the Mishnah. So it says Ein Ratzin B'Shabbos. Sorry, you also says in English. You cannot run on Shabbos lihita mel for exercise, but you can go for a stroll as you normally do, and not worry about it being exercise, even if you walk the whole day. So, so this seems to differentiate between like the fact that you happen to have gotten exercise by your activity isn't a problem. The problem seemingly is when you explicitly do your exercise routine. So, but again, the question as mentioned before, that the question is what exactly is required to reach the standard of what's considered to be lihita mel. So according to the Rambam's Parish Mishnah, it looks like any exercise is a problem. According to the Rabbi Chaim, where it mentions something about it being similar to medicine, so it might be only, let's say, if you're doing physical therapy on Shabbos is a problem, but maybe standard exertion might not be a problem.
Why would physical therapy be a problem?
Because that is most definitely refuah.
But do we not still fall under the Shmarta Shosef element?
So Shmarta so the Chai B'hem, right? So the Chai B'hem on Shabbos, right? So again, that would be if it's a life-threatening, in this case of life or death. Normally, physical therapy isn't you're going to die if you don't exercise, you don't do the physical therapy exercise today. Most time, and again, if somebody has better medical knowledge than me and knows of the exercises that are required to be done every 12 hours in order to not lose, like let's say function in a limb or something, then that would be a different story. But generally, since that's not how physical therapy works, period. So therefore, we would permit it. We would not permit it because that's definitely refuah, as opposed to just you're doing your stretches might not be. But if you're doing it because explicitly for refuah, explicitly for medical reasons, that would be the biggest problem. Because then it's not like refuah, it is refuah, it is medicine. And that would be a problem, midrabanan.
So if you're doing physical therapy because because you want continuous function of, let's say, your shoulder or your elbow, so you're saying that's not allowed on Shabbos?
if you would lose your use of the limb here, for more on the, if you would actually lose the use of that limb, then you would be allowed to do the treatment on Shabbos. But most of the time with physical therapy, it's not you have to do it every 12 hours type of thing. Normally, say you do it, once a day or once every other day, or a couple, like meaning if the timing isn't required to be done on Shabbos, in order to not use the limb, then that, right? So medicine that's not serious enough, you can't do on Shabbos, right? So minor things, let's say, so again, if there's no potential risk to limb or life, you can't do it on Shabbos. If there is risk to limb or life, then it's mutter on Shabbos because of the chai b'hem.
Okay.
But Ishmarta Molodov Shotechem is not really coming into play here.
What about
that's in general why you should not bring yourself to injury or be proactive about not hurting yourself. Here, this is it's a slightly different angle. Okay, so hopefully it'll be a little clearer as we go on. It'll make more sense, right? So as in, if it's right, so the issue here is when it's not quite at the level yet of it being a medical necessity. It's a medical, right? It's not life-threatening or limb-threatening. It's just, it's a medical thing that needs to be done, but not necessarily needs to be done right now. So, and then we get to the Shulchan Aruch, and he talks about exercise. So he says, you're not allowed to exercise. And what is that? Pressing down on the body forcibly in order to exert yourself and cause sweat, right? Not sweat, that should be sweat, right? So the important thing being there is that you're causing sweat, right? So that mentioning, his explicit mentioning of sweat is going to play a very large role in the way we end up concluding.
Oh, I'm so in trouble.
Okay, because there it's saying the issue is that what is the medical element is that you are causing yourself to sweat, right? So basically this dates back to the theory of the humors, which is either meant that you had either to add fluids or remove fluids in order to maintain a healthy body balance. So that's how bloodletting was extremely popular, as well as imbibing a lot of very different tinctures and elixirs, and let's say the original zera of why is medicine forbidden? Because you might come to grind up the medicine. So that's more of a thing related to that. So that's where we where we stand at the moment. Okay. Oh, I think I just lost the. Let me put it back to full screen. Sorry. Read mode. Okay, good. Okay. Right. So. Right. So the issue being again is sweating, because that's the medical part of it, is that you are sweating. Right. The goal of the exercise is to be alpha schwitzt. Right. The point is to work up a good sweat, and that's what's going to be medically beneficial. Right, and that's very important. Is that right? So so now one of the strongest people who explain this is the Mishnah Berurah. Again, this is Mishnah Berurah, right? Rabbi Yisrael Meir Kagan, writing in Poland in the late 19th, early 20th century. Right, so he's talking about what's exactly considered to be refuah. So again, since medication could be taken to cause the patient to perspire, any treatment that causes one to perspire is prohibited. Massaging someone who is exhausted to restore his strength is subject to debate whether it's permitted. And again, Avram would seem to maintain that it is prohibited. Okay, so again, so it comes down to it's a debate as to whether or not somebody who's fully healthy is allowed to do so or not. Right, if somebody is fully healthy, right, then and what you're doing here is seemingly medical activity, then that would be a problem, right? But the inference people make from that can be made from here, though, is that if it's not done for a medical reason, then perhaps maybe it would be allowed. Let's say the average human being simply wanting to go do the push-ups and sit-ups when they're not any weaker. So for them, maybe it'll be beneficial. So to this effect, so that would be a very big kula that we could then have, is that as long as we're not sweating, right? Therefore, it could be allowed. But this is only in regards to if we think the only issue involved with exercise is the issue of refuah. But is that necessarily the only thing that could be a problem? So to that, we still have one, right? So we still have one more thing left, another hurdle to jump over. So here we go. So this is the Gemara in Shabbat talking about this sugya is called the sugya of uvdin dechol. Okay, things you do during the week versus things you do on Shabbos. Okay, so based on a pasuk on Isaiah, right? Your honor is not by going your own way from attending to your affairs and speaking idle words. Rabbis inferred from these words of you honor it, that your dress on Shabbat should not be like your dress during the week. And as Rabbi Yochanan would refer to his clothing as my honor, indicating that appropriate clothing is a form of deference. The words going on your way, right? So in the Hebrew, mesot rachecha, indicate that your walking on Shabbos should not be like your walking during the week, right? And then when it says from attending to your affairs, it means that it's prohibited to deal with your weekday affairs and speak about them on Shabbos. However, affairs of the heaven, i.e. those pertaining to mitzvot, will be permitted. And similarly, when it says v'davar davar, speaking idle words, means your speech on Shabbat should not be like your speech during the week, i.e. one should not discuss his weekday affairs on Shabbat. So here, right, so we have the whole walking on Shabbos not like it should be during the week. So what is that? So what on earth does that mean, right? This isn't so clear. And there's all these things that, again, your Shabbos is different from the weekday, right? If you're talking about the question of is this Shabbostic or not, that's this Gemara that you're talking about. This is the spirit of Shabbos Gemara, right? Extremely expansive, right? The way you dress, the way you walk, the way you talk, things that you do, right, have to be different on Shabbos than they are during the week. So now let's look at one of those examples as it applies. Okay, so again, we're talking about now we're in Torah or Chaim, right? So he quotes the Gemara, right? So right, right, continuing on continuation of the Gemara above. So and then they say so the explanation there is that you're walking on the ways of walking shouldn't be the same as during the week. So now he's giving some explanation of what that means based on other Rishonim. That Al-Kain, so we'll just go with the English word. Yeah, we're running out of time. Okay, so therefore, a person shouldn't run on Shabbos as they do during the week, but he can run for a mitzvah, such as a synagogue or something similar is allowed. Okay, so it seems right now, are you allowed to go for a run for fun on Shabbos? Or for exercise purposes? Right, I'm seeing some shaking the head, seemingly not. So, I'm wondering, what Moshe, why don't you say, what about the mitzvah of the Nishmar Temel and the Shotechem, right, of being healthy? Right, so apparently, right, that's not considered to be a valid example. The only thing that's listed as being a valid example of running is running to a mitzvah, not running, which itself could be a mitzvah. Right, so seemingly that's excluded. But not to worry, you have hope. For all those who are young at heart, what do we have? It's written the Sefer Mitzvah Aktanot that young men, Bachurim, which does not sound like children, it sounds like young men, right? Who enjoy the running and the jumping, it is allowed. Similarly, to see that which you enjoy is similarly permitted to view. So this would seemingly be a very huge kula, right? Rabbi Yaakov Marie Bell in Sefer Mitzvah Aktanos is giving us a huge kula here. It's saying that if you're enjoying it, even though running and jumping should be forbidden, and remember we had before, right, the issue of being hitamel. So seemingly that also goes out the window. If you're simply doing it because you're having fun running and jumping, playing tag, maybe it's completely mutter. right? Because it's part of owning Shabbos now. So what do we do with this? What do we think? So does this wipe out everything we've learned until now? All the Yisurim, clearly it's fine as long as it's fun. As long as it's fun for the kids to do. So the answer is yes and no. So we'll see some limitations on this as well as some qualifications. So the Shulchan Aruch quotes verbatim the last bit, right? Young men who enjoy the running and jumping are allowed to do so. Similarly, to see it, which enjoys permitted to view, right? If you wanted to go, they're playing, let's say, again, whether or not you can play hockey or not on Shabbos, we'll leave aside for now, but let's say if they're playing hockey, can I go sit in the stands and watch? Even if there's no Eruv, right? Again, let's assume there's non-Jews playing. So, right? And then, the answer is, seemingly it's fine. And the Rama adds, based on the Beit Yosef, that it's also similar to go for a stroll. So, right? So seemingly, right? So all of the kulas that we mentioned before seemingly are now allowed. This is great. Right? We can do whatever we want now on Shabbos. Aren't we so lucky? So the answer is that, well, it's not quite so simple, because this is specifically in regards to running and jumping around, not necessarily with any particular goal in mind. When you have a goal in mind, right, it gets more complicated. Similarly, once you introduce there's a ball involved, it also can get more complicated. And depending on of all the factors mentioned so far and how you weigh each of them, you will get to very different conclusions. Okay, so again, we mentioned a couple of factors here. We mentioned the factor of ball on Shabbos being bad, reason not necessarily qualified. We discussed potential ancillary issues that can come up with playing ball on Shabbos, right? In terms of other malach we might accidentally do by the by. We discussed the problem of exercising being a problem medically. And then we also have differentiating between Shabbos and the weekday. So depending on how you weigh these four factors, you can either end up completely allowing all sports and exercise on Shabbos, or you could wind up forbidding all of them on Shabbos, right? It depends on how you define each and every one of those. Okay, so depending on the combination thereof, you will get to different conclusions. So now again, another 20th century posting. So we have the right Milam al-Holil, right, Rav David C. Hoffman, right? So a very prominent posting in Germany in the late 90s, early 20th centuries. So he was asked, "Are you allowed to go to the gym as part of the daily curriculum in school? At least to go to school even on Shabbos." So part of it was they would make them train as well, right? So they're able to get out of writing in school on Shabbos because they're like, we're Jewish, and they're like, okay, fine, like we can let you go on that one. You don't have to write anything on Shabbos. But they had to sit through their classes, and they still had to join. The question is, can they join in gym as well? The German word they use is Turan, right? Right? For all those who know German. I don't know German, but that I can tell is close enough to English that I know what it means. Right? So again, if you look inside, it's interesting. Also, there's a whole explanation for what is exercise and what's medical, not medical, and what he means by it, in case you're confused by what he thought what was from our previous discussion. So he goes into it more in depth. But again, with interest of time, we're going to skip that. So he says, exercise requires exerting yourself, even if you aren't sick at all, and your intention is just to strengthen your body's condition. It is forbidden. And that is why Rabbi Chaim says, like medicine, but not that it is medicine, right? It's kumo refuah, domo refuah, but not that it is refuah. So therefore, exercise is a problem. Therefore, don't permit somebody who asks to train. But in a place where they have a custom already, it might not be forbidden for them, specifically in a place where they're worried about Ava, meaning hatred from non-Jews. The principal of the school will come to hate the Jews that don't participate in this activity, as happened in some schools called gymnasiums. So apparently there was a lot of hate between non-Jews based on Jews refusing to participate in their classes, notably the class called gym. Did this end up leading to things later on in Germany and anti-Semitism? I don't know, but we were afraid of it, and well, apparently we didn't do a good job preventing anti-Semitism in Germany because we all know what happened in the Holocaust. Anyways, so focusing back on our story here, right? So he says that you can't. He's very much. He says again, he's Muhammad schools in the places where they happen to do so, but he says somebody asks you should tell them no, right? Which means that it's a no, but maybe it's allowed. So again, so right. So this simile is very complicated and confusing. So again, let me summarize. Okay, so let me clarify. I'll start by saying Rabbi Karofkin's positions on these activities, and then I'll get back to the question of how we could get that again. So there are people who, of all as we mentioned, exercise on Shabbos, sports on Shabbos, playing games, being games with the kids or adults, as well as right, ball, exercise, right, having fun on Shabbos, right, going for a run. So there are people who permit and forbid all of these. I'm just saying that there are opinions who permit and forbid every single one. For more, if you want a full detailed list, I included on the next page a link to an article as well as a summary of it by Rav David Stav and Rav Avram Stav, where they go through much more in depth than what I did when they explaining the opinions who are Makel as well as those who are Machmir. They conclude more in the Makel sense with some of the qualifications of Rabbi Krotman. We'll get to just a minute. I didn't translate it because it's very long and complicated, and to translate without translating the rest of the entire article would be a disservice because it assumes that you read the entirety of the 15 other pages they wrote with footnotes, which again, I didn't get to all of it, not even close. So, and so a question being, let me stop sharing for now because we're not going to look inside for now. So what are the relevant issues? So again, I'll give you the psak and then the reasons, and then afterwards I want to. I see I've been getting some messages. I apologize for not noticing them. Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. So I see I got from Danny. It was talking about exercise specifically that was being referred to being specifically calisthenics. Right. Okay. So we'll get back to those questions. Please raise them again when I finish the summary, and then we'll go into all the details. Hopefully, I'll be able to answer everybody's questions and on everything. Okay. So also, we're going to try and do a recording before the questions. Because we're doing a fundraiser for the BAYT Midrash at the end of the year. So we want to show all the various shir we've given on Zoom. So I'm just going to take about 2 seconds to say everybody yell out sports halacha. I'll give you guys a countdown, but we'll do that after the summary. So just giving everybody a heads up. Okay. So again, Rabbi Krotkin's positions on it. Again, there are people who are being Machir and Aser, all of these things. So Rabbi Krotkin's position is sports, big problem based on the Shulchan Aruch and not being Shabbosdik, and there being very little grounds to allow it. On the other hand, there's a question of exercise. So exercise. So Rabbi Krotkin is of the opinion that we mentioned that it's specifically a problem that's done in a medical fashion, meaning bringing yourself to a sweat. And specifically, when you bring yourself to a sweat is the issue, because that was the original takana midrabanan in regards to the medical issues, as seen by the Mishnah Berurah. But that would mean that if you were simply exercising because just an average healthy person, there is room to allow it. So, but the question is where would you be allowed to exercise? So Rabbi Krotkin, again, there's also mentioned the issue of utin d'chol, right? Again, things that are not really Shabbos-dik. So you would not be allowed to. You'd be allowed to exercise, let's say, in your own home. If you felt like you needed to do some push-ups or sit-ups, to get blood pumping to feel better, right? That would be fine. But you would not be allowed to go for a run outside because that. And let's say if you want to go for your walk, we mentioned like the Tosefta. You could go for your walk, but you should do so dressed appropriately for Shabbos. You should not, go in your shorts and your t-shirt because that would not be Shabbos-dik and that'd be inappropriate. So right. So that's Rabbi Krotkin's opinion. If you'd like more clarification, feel free to reach out to Rabbi Krotkin. Again, that's Rabbi Krotkin's opinion, right? So right. So right, that that in terms of sports on Shabbos is a problem based on the Yerushalmi, based on the Pesach of the Shulchan Aruch. Again, very much strongly not in the spirit of Shabbos. Exercise done in the privacy of your own home, right? Assuming which isn't affecting the overall spirit of Shabbos, would be fine. Don't use in terms of using of equipment. Make sure you're not adjusting any of the equipment on Shabbos, because that itself could be you could be violating malacha, like you're putting weights on a barbell, right? So that would be, you could violate malacha by tightening and screwing it on. That could be asur yoraisa. So again, you should not be doing any of that on Shabbos either way. But on the other hand, there are people who also would forbid it. So again. So if you see somebody who is or isn't doing it, there is an opinion that can support them by somebody. The question is by whom and where they live. So as far as should you go screaming at the kids in the park playing ball, even if that kid is 45, seemingly not necessarily go scream at him. Okay. And yeah. Okay, so hopefully that was clear, right? And those are the factors that you're weighing, right? There's uf and dechol, which, right, things we're doing versus during Shabbos. The question of playing with a ball specifically. The question of, is exercise always medical or not necessarily always medical, right? So because you could really argue both ways. But people don't, as opposed to you could say exercise is different from kids playing catch or having fun playing tag, or even the kid who's 45 playing tag, because right, that's an enjoyable activity. Whereas, like as much as you enjoy, your run or your jog, that's not simply a do have fun thing. You're clearly doing it because it's healthy for you. You're not just supposed to, as opposed to the playing, having fun playing a game, like you're doing it because it's only Shabbos of enjoying playing the game or activity, not because of the potential medical benefit you might have if I'll live longer, if I exercise every day, and that whole thought process. Okay. So before I move forward to questions, we're going to do the recording. I see Moshe has a hand raised. Don't worry, I will address them. But we're going to first. Okay, so I'm going to do the countdown, right? We will answer that if you need it for your mental health. Thank you, Danny. So before
you have to unmute everybody for this.
Yes, so everybody please unmute. Please turn on your videos if you can. That way we'll be able to. Right. That will be.
What exactly are we to do?
What?
What exactly are we supposed to do?
I'm gonna go 1, 2, and then we all say sports halacha. Okay.
Sports halacha. Okay.
Okay. So again, please unmute and turn on your video if you can. If you can't, that's okay.
I'll try to remember that by.
Okay. Here we go. 1, 2, sports halacha.
Sports halacha.
Okay, good. Now, okay. So hopefully that came out well. If not, Rabbi
Play it back. Let's see.
With video
Play
editing.
it back. Let's see.
I can't play it back because it's in the Zoom recording. I won't find out till we're done. But hopefully it's fine. And if not, we'll have our smiling faces, which is more than good enough. Not to worry. So
I should have taken my name up. We should change our names.
Don't worry, the
Protect the
recording does
innocent.
not have your name, but I'd be willing to bet that most of those who watch the video will know who everybody is. So you'll also get the video too if you're signed up for the BAYT Midrash Sephron Dov list email. If you're not signed up and you'd like to be signed up, please put your email in the chat and I will happily send it to you as well. That you can be updated with all of our events. Okay, so now let's address the question from the audience. So I see that Danny wrote, and the question is, would you be allowed to do for mental health purposes? The answer is yes, because mental health would fall into the category of, right, let's say I need to go for a walk because of, because for my mental health, like I need to do my exercise. So, right, so again, so that would probably be allowed. Again, so the question is to which degree, and again, degree of public would you do so? The answer, so again, a lot of it comes down to the level of when you say mental health activity. Right? Is it simply that, like, you need a break to go for a walk, or is it if you think you're actually at risk of a mental breakdown, then the answer is please violate all Hilchot Shabbos to go make sure that you don't have that mental breakdown, because that's quite serious. So Right. So that's the question that, right. So if you need for mental health, there's a lot of room to do so. Right. And if you want to hear more about issues with mental health and halacha, please see Rabbi Yoni Rosenzweig's book that's coming out shortly, where he goes very much in depth into these issues. That should be coming out in the next couple of months. If you want to pre-order, I think he's still having a fundraiser towards that effect. Search Rabbi Yoni Rosenzweig in Google, and you will find him. Also, he's on Facebook, so you'll be able to find him pretty easily. Okay, right. So again, so with mental health, right? Again, so a lot of it comes down to the level of, again, are we worried about depression? Now we're about depression, versus just simply like, I need a break, right? So then, could you say, I want to go for a run because I need a break? That might be up for debate if you're allowed to do that. But if you're somebody, let's say, who's like actually removably struggling with anxiety or depression, right, or potentially are, then again, we're dealing with Inister D'Rabbanan here, whether it be exercise or sports. Again, at worst, this is D'Rabbanan. So again, we would most definitely say that if there's a actual health risk whatsoever, you should definitely violate that in favor of the medical one. And if it becomes a regular thing, please talk to your local doctor, psychologist, therapist, etc., to make sure that it is properly addressed. Right? When it happens the first time, again, I don't know. Right? But better, again, talking about Inister D'Rabbanan here, so probably better just to go for the run. But but you also should probably immediately following Shabbos then go talk to your a therapist or psychologist for help in that regard. Okay, so anybody else have any other questions in regards to sports and exercise? I see my brother Paul, our local buffer, high school student at Yeshiva Frisch. Let's see if he has anything to ask. Okay, so anybody have any questions to ask in regards to sports, exercise, and Shabbos? Right, and the various permutations.
Why is perspiration the key indicator? Like for some people, like they take for instance, just sitting outside on your deck, you could be drenched in sweat, given the humidity we have in the summer here.
Right. So if you're deliberately sitting outside to have a schwitz, you're also in violation of the D'Rabbanan. According to the opinions, if you're specifically sitting outside in order to schwitz, let's say you physically deliberately walk into a sauna in order to sweat with that goal in mind, that would be a problem, either of Amel D'Rabbanan, according to many opinions.
But if you're going outside because it's a nice day and you want to eat lunch outside
happening to sweat isn't a problem. Deliberately bringing yourself to a sweat for a medical purpose is the problem.
Okay.
So what about if you want to move a couch?
So that would come down to the issue of that's like I want to move the couch, and therefore I technically ended up doing exercise. So that's not a problem, because your goal is So if your goal is that you want to move the couch, right? So nobody said that's a problem. But if you're like, I want to exercise, I don't have weight, so therefore I'm going to start bench pressing my couch instead. So then you might run into that might be a problem. Again, according to the opinions that say the issue is sweating, so assuming that assuming you're in good enough shape and bench pressing your couch will make you sweat, there's no problem. But if you were to, then it would. But according to the opinions that say the issue is exercise done in a medical fashion, even for your maintaining your general health, is a problem too. So that would still be an issue.
What if bench pressing your couch would get rid of COVID?
If it would get rid of COVID, that would be an entirely different story. Again, because that would be against Sabu Koach Nefesh. Sabu Koach Nefesh would probably be permitted. But I have not heard any studies that say bench pressing couches. Okay. Okay, that's an interesting question. Sexual health activities. I would need more details. What you mean by that? Would you mean by the permissibility, let's say, of rinsing oneself off afterwards, or I just need a little more information for the question? Because depending on the circumstances, I'm not certain how that would, meaning that it would be unhealthy if you do too. I'm missing the. I'm not understanding the question here. Is there a problem with the number of according to most opinions, that would not necessarily be a problem. Again, if you were again doing an activity explicitly in order for exercise, bring yourself to sweat would be an issue. But if you're not doing so in order to sweat, it would not be a problem, right? So just because you're going for a walk, or spending all right, or activities with your spouse, just because it happens to also be exercise accomplished, doesn't mean that that's going to be a problem. Similar, let's say if you don't again, if your kids really like when you throw them up in the air, right, and you know that you're gonna, by the end of the day, like you're gonna be huffing and puffing, right, and you know it's gonna be a good workout. So then, like, assuming you didn't go over to the kid who had no desire to do so and say, I'm going to use you now for my bench presses till I sweat, and that's why we're going to play this game right now. So that would be a problem. But if it happened by in and of itself, it would not be a problem. Are there no multiple purpose activities? Right. So the question is, the issue in regards to exercise is that you're explicitly doing something that's clearly done just for exercise and exercise's sake alone. Right, like just like we said, like you want to go for a walk, you want to go for a nice tiol, right? Like let's say you live in the mountains, you want to go for a nice hike because it's beautiful out, right? So even though by doing so, it's definitely be a good workout, but if your goal is, right, if you're doing it for, if you're doing it expressly for exercise, then you can run into issues. If by doing you might have it'll be a good exercise and you're doing it for both, then there are, assuming that you're not in violation of the rest of the issues of the whole, would be room to be made up. Just the main issue of it being a problem of being exercise, of being over underneath explicitly, is if you're doing it specifically for that purpose. Right, again, sweating because you want to go for a walk and it's hot outside, right? There's no problem with, but if like you'd never leave your house because it's super hot outside, and you're only going because you need a schwitz today, then you might run into that might be a problem. But again, there would probably be, depending on the exact specifics of the case, there perhaps be more room to be make up. But I would need an exact case to know, and I technically am not allowed to do socks, so therefore that's why I'm forwarding you to Rabbi Chaim for that. Okay. And then again, next week we'll talk about the advisability of exercise in general and whether or not that what mitzvah can and cannot be performed. Right, discussing Vishmar Tov V'Techem, as well as again other issues that come up in regards to exercising to better serve God.